Welcome. It's Sunday morning, and I'm here in the house. I beat you this morning with some old friends. We got some old friends coming to join us. Grab a cup of coffee. Get ready for more good news. It's an interesting world, and we're all in it. Good morning. Good morning. Let's begin with a prayer, shall we? Iko mako e maku I loko kalani. Mahalo pia nā koe. Mai kaunalipo. Mai kaunalipo. Mai kahikina. Mai kaulana. E hele mai o e atu e. E hele mai e ku. Ahina. A tangaroa. A tāne. E hele mai e kanaha. Kalai. E kanawai. E hele mai o e au makua. Mahalo ke akua. As above, so below. May it be on earth as it is in heaven. Please, give us this day and forgive us. Please, help us to forgive. Please, no temptation and no evil. Mahalo ke akua. May we be a blessing to each other. Mahalo ke akua. May you be a blessing to us all.
Of the raping of the land, of prejudice and superstition, such things have no place in Pali. Listen to my heart, and it speaks to me of danger, of danger. I have watched the tides of change in a homeland overrun with strangers, of the people lost at sea, drift amid the noise and the frustration, losing all they hold dear, giving in to all of their fears. Still my course remains.
Good morning. Good morning. Hey. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. What a wonderful world. I couldn't help but notice the entire planet seems to be having a healing moment. Wow. Wow. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on a Sunday morning. You know, my grandfather, he would always say, things always look better from behind. So, welcome to Hindsite 2020. We're going to try to reconnect, talk about our week, see what's exciting and new in the world, and talk a little story with some of our friends. First and foremost, let's welcome everybody to the show. This should be fabulous. And this is the crew this morning. Doc Tusi, Jimmy Love, Mariah Ben Joseph, and myself. So, welcome. Welcome this morning, everybody. Good morning. Jimmy, good to see you.
Good to see everybody.
Good to see everybody. I say, you might want to turn up that microphone. I'm sorry, I got you too low. That's probably just me. I apologize. Doc, good morning as always, Paulie. How are things on Oahu?
Beautiful sunshine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I muted you quite accidentally, I think.
Beautiful sunshine in Windward, Oahu.
Oh, nice. Nicely done. And Miss Mariah, my favorite part of the island, and this is what I like. We're connected from Hamaku all the way over to the Kona side. You would think we'd have more connectivity, but there ain't much driving going on the Big Island these days. How are you doing?
Doing great. Beautiful day over here in Honanao on the farm, as you can see.
Oh, beautiful. Those breadfruit trees. You're on your farm down in
hmm
Kona?
Yes, sir.
And I think it
Yep.
was somebody's birthday yesterday.
Yes, it was my 9-year-old's birthday. She just made 9 yesterday. And we came over here to celebrate, just to come and get out of the house and come to the farm. So
So
we came
nice
here.
that you can get out of the house and come to the farm. I mean, that's quite an advantage over our friends in Honolulu who, you know, and I'm talking downtown Honolulu. Those poor folks in Makiki who are sitting around in their apartments, just waiting for this moment to pass them by. I mean, for you guys, at least the kids get to get outside. What'd you do? You're not staying at a hotel. You got some people there. You got a social distance. How'd you take care of that?
Well, we have some people here. We're social distancing from some of them on the farm, but the other ones, we've all been kind of in quarantine together as a big family. So there's only about 7 of us all together, and which is great. And we're all just being very careful and very blessed to be able to have a space to grow food for our family and other families, and to teach our children how to do the same and how to provide for our ohana during these times where some people have no food, and we do.
Yeah, good that you share. You know, we say food, and it must always be shared. You know, you
hmm
cut the fish one more time. So I'm really pleased you guys are there, and the girls are staying outdoors. You guys camping? Is that what's happening?
We did. We went camping on the farm just to get things out of the ordinary and make things a little bit more exciting. Somehow, for children, going camping is very, very exciting. So,
Right, right. So for her 9th birthday, instead of being locked up in a home, you took her down to the farm and let her go camping and running around and fire and
yeah, we had
anything
a
else.
fire and we had some birthday cake and a really delicious meal, and we did some crafting, and we had a dance party, and 9-year-old delights.
Perfect, actually. That's like a
hmm
19-year-old delight. That's like a 29-year-old delight. I don't
I
think
didn't
you ever
mind the
get
day at
tired.
all. I was really very, very grateful that she has the ability and the desire to do things that most of us in the family actually would want to do anyway. So,
Nice.
it was great.
Nice. I don't want to keep you, so I know you got to run off. I'm just glad you joined us this morning. Folks can see that people are adjusting and getting out of doors and still connecting. I sure wanted to connect us on the island side, but babies got to be fed. And I know they're waking
Yes,
up any moment
they
now.
are. We went to bed a little bit late, so I have a little bit of time, but they will be waking up very soon. Yes.
Right, right. You know what they say. First rule of order is feed the children. So,
Oh, it's
we're all
true.
about that. You make sure you're safe.
hmm
And thanks for joining us in Rising Voices again this week. I know we're going to talk about that on the show a little bit this morning, but that sure was a great time, I thought, seeing everybody and beginning this long conversation around indigenous knowledge and modern science and the connectivity and especially at this moment during the reconstruction of normal.
hmm Yeah, it was a fabulous event, and I want to thank you guys for being so pivotal and putting it on. You know, it really showed how many people were able to jump onto the YouTube and to all of the different channels that we had available, that this is something that people are very interested in discussing. You know, how do we come back in a sustainable way that makes sense for our earth? Because, you know, as we see, there's definitely some very, very good things of having humans stay home.
Right.
And, you know, there's definitely some really not good things about it as well, you know, but it's, you know, having that conversation, I think, is definitely the first place to begin the comeback. So where and how do we collaborate together and adapt?
Man, I love the way you said that. The comeback. You know, I like a good Rocky movie. You know, so that, and by that I meant Rocky Marciano. He wasn't much of an actor, but it was funny to watch him on television. Anyway, I
Yeah.
love you. Be safe.
Okay.
We'll,
Mahalo, you
we'll see
guys.
you
Thank you so
soon.
much for having me on, and enjoy your day, everybody. Happy Sunday.
Aloha.
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 Yeah, so here we go. And somehow she took Jimmy Love with her. Polly, no, there he is. I see Zoom was reassigning us. Mighty decent of him. So, Jimmy, did you get a chance to see any of that Rising Voices conference?
I wish I had, but no, I did what old people that work too long in the yard do. They fall asleep.
Very nice. Very nice. Good to, it's really great to have these admissions late in the day.
Yes.
I've been getting used to that. It's either the admissions or it's the omission late in the day, and I think I'm glad to belong to the former, So I'm sitting in the chair these days too. But Polly, thank you so much for coming to the conference. What do you think of what's going on? And we're gonna fix that little integration loop of the technology by the next meeting.
I thought I thought it was beautiful. You know, when you're at our age and having gone through the rigors of an academic world, you know, I can proclaim myself as a recovering academic.
Yeah.
And I'm beginning to feel somewhat remiss, but at the same time enlightened that I'm restoring the old stories and the wisdoms that I had learned as a little boy that I did not take quite seriously. And I'm realizing the profound wisdom of our elders and our ancestors. And I was just amazed at how easily I was lulled into pushing them aside and then embracing something that it's not only very different, but I think not healthy for humanity nor the planet. But at the same time, I realized that it's a matter of seeking solutions that have always been within us, that are intrinsic. And that's what our cultures, our heritage have taught us. That unfortunately, in my case, I've been in denial for too long. But it's nice at the twilight of my voyage that I can finally have a sense of its deep meaning and its beautiful value. So at least I can pass it on to my children and grandchildren.
Whew. Polly, there are a few places I go where I feel more comfortable than at your holly. And I mean that sincerely. You know that. So I'm hard-pressed to see those failure marks of yours, that along in what I consider a distinguished career in the service of children, of students, in the learning. Not just in the sports arena, but, and the academic arena, right there administratively at the campus, in policy, fighting for their access to education. I mean, I've seen you do it. It's, it's phenomenal. And I'm thinking, man, if we got regrettable past, I got about 40 years in rock and roll, and I got, and I'm gonna have to make amends for, up and down the music scene. Although I must confess, some of those performances were redemption in and of themselves. You know what I mean? It's just, some of those moments and some of those stages are all over the world was just a near religious experience, And Jimmy Love, I know you got that early life in LA, so you know what I'm talking about when we talk about the bowl and, down in Santa Monica and certain, believe it or not, the entertainment world does have its meccas.
Yes, especially in that live situation you're talking about where there's an exchange of intense energy between people going on. We don't experience that in too many ways. And live performances are one of those ways that you go, wow, what is this energy passing between us here?
Yeah, this moment in our social interaction brings an entire industry into question, right? Since Homer, Shakespeare, through the plagues, everything. So they've recovered before, but this moment of gathering in crowds where someone comes in front of you and does their art, their expression, their, what is it called in academia? Their humanity, right? Those studies are called humanities, right? It's like when someone comes forward and offers their art to a crowd and receives more than just bread, more than just payment. And I'm not meaning to, assert the old Christian adage of, more than bread. But I'm suggesting that there is an interaction that happens when people gather and have a common experience. And we call it ceremony or celebration or whatever. But that industry, let's talk about it the way the world is impacted. Those economics of Southern California, bam, there you go. I said it like TRW, right? Those economics that happen between Santa Monica and the Valley that drive the whole big industry, they're clearly impacted by this moment. How do you think that's going to recover?
Well, probably with a consolidation of wealth. It's hard to say because we don't know all the things going on behind the curtain. All we can do is sort of prepare for what is called a man-made disaster right now and get ready because it could get worse. It could happen again. And all we are left with, not all I should say, but gratefully what we are left with is the good, solid human interaction that has always kept us going as a species, as brothers and sisters on this planet. We're getting a taste right now, and actually, I'm afraid it's going to get a little worse. But we're going to get a taste. We're fortunate enough to, we've got a roof over our heads. We've made choices. We were lucky. We had guidance at key moments in our life that somehow set us up to be as safe and comfortable as we are. And we're about to get a taste of what it's like to have been abandoned by the system or betrayed by the system. And we have to remember in all this that we've got each other. And as bad as it might get, we've got each other. And you can't always look to your leaders for answers. You actually have to look inside and those you love to find the right path.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you addressing, our relations that I mentioned earlier in the urban metropolitan areas, much greater density. I can't help but notice that you and I both have emergency management backgrounds and slices in them, and we both took the same path of getting as rural as we could, right? As prepared as we could, suspecting this moment,
Yeah.
in human history by one form of disaster or another. Pali, I know you're out there in a community that literally has won several awards nationally for preparedness, a community I'm hugely familiar with, intimate with, as I grew up there for several years, impressionable years, from 11 to 15. So, how are things out there on the east shore of Haula, which I've always seen that Ko'olau Poko, Ko'olau Loa is really the lifeblood of Oahu?
I think the Haula Community Association here is probably one of the more amazing community roots-based development initiatives I've ever seen. Simply because I was at it from the ground up and to where it's now. It was featured as the national awardee for the University Economic Development Association at its national conference. And it wasn't led by a bunch of scientists and academics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was led by mainly elderly ladies who had the most compelling energy force that if you have that, you can move mountains. They had a lot of aloha for their community. I'm now seeing that play out. And if there is going to be an effective community development initiative, we tend to look at the more functional components of an effective organization. I should know it. I taught it at the graduate and the postgraduate level, but nowhere in the literature is mentioned aloha. And if that component isn't there, that's what links the process to the heart and soul of the community. And if it comes from there, then it's the weaving of the two that enables the flowering of the kind of security and the kind of safety and the kind of future that we all aspire to. And the beautiful thing to be part of. And I'm humbled by these wonderful kupuna. And of course the leadership. And the beautiful thing about kupuna, it doesn't mean Polynesian elder. It means elder. And aloha isn't ethnically tied. It's boundless. It includes, if you have both, who cares where you're from or what you call yourself?
Yes, exactly.
You make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, that just cracks me up. Right? It doesn't mean Polynesian elder. I've always remarked, I had the fortune of being paid by taxpayer dollar to go around and meet all kinds of elders and indigenous folk when I was younger as part of my learning, my training. And it's surprising how many of the indigenous, native, aboriginal even cultures across the planet, their word for the people, for their own tribes, for the folks, the humans that were identified as this or that or the other, their word for themselves was always the people. It's nothing any bigger than that. It's just, it means us. And we play it out into all these different tiny little regional, national, tribal symbols. Just like we carve up our football teams into, 24 franchises or what have you that we can all root over, and some big competitive race to the top, which, interestingly enough, I was compelled by this week's meeting with Rising Voices and all the scientists and students and native elders to look at it and say, which plays out against a larger narrative, right? All of our experiences are played out either into an economic narration of the marketplace or a social narration of what is respectable behavior. Right there, when we consider the bad neighborhoods, in Honolulu or any other city, what we're really doing is we're kind of class-wise and, racially profiling the city and the town and saying, well, that area over there is a little sketchy, it's a little dicey. We find these other terms to use that don't seem quite as racist or quite as bigoted, but have the same impact. It keeps that station of people constantly immersed in the mire of economic depression. Now, as we begin this recovery route, Pali, how do you see it going? Do we continue to support? And I ask this question fairly, I think. In order to get back to normal, wouldn't we as intelligent, participating people have to pull on our blinders? We would literally have to, like Ulysses sailors, stuff the wax in our ears, right? And cover our eyes so that we don't see what's going wrong with the system. How do you propose we might do something else?
Well, it's using an old military cliche. You don't fight today's war with the last war strategy. There's a major. I believe it would be accurate to say a paradigm shift is occurring, and it's in process. It's both traumatizing at the same time. It's an incredible opportunity. What we need to be just very mindful of is that the solutions to our current problems, that they are not conceptualized in terms of the old paradigm. Counter to all of this, I believe very strongly. In fact, I'm very much engaged in this thinking and this trend is not necessarily just innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship, which usually is the foundation for transitioning from something old to something new. But I'd like to add an additional word: restorative innovation, restorative creativity, and restorative entrepreneurship. A probably good example would be just looking at the language. Over a decade ago, the language was building, fixing, sustaining, and globalization. That language is now shifted, and I'm really, really happy because it's going to grow. These are the seeds, and I'm seeing it because those are the seeds that will lay the foundation as the shift moves towards something very compelling, and I believe in a good way. It's now those old terms, not old terms, but those concepts are now being reframed by new terms. So instead of building, we use the word growing. Instead of fixing, we use the word healing. Instead of sustaining, we now embrace something that is as ancient as our existence, and very few people are aware of it. Instead of sustainability, this ancient concept is called regeneration. Of course, somebody read about it somewhere, published a book, and said we've discovered a new method. But it's an ancient wisdom. And where we should have gone, and we have talked about this many years, Kalani, localization instead of globalization. So we're seeing a change in the vocabulary. when it changes in the language, that's very, very significant.
Yeah.
And by using this concept of restorative innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship, what we're doing is that we're giving an opportunity to restore ancient solutions by weaving traditional wisdom with modern science, technology, and knowledge. It's not either or. That's the process of change. It's some German philosopher named Hegel called it the dialectic. You know, very nice, but the dialectic, we call it something else. 1,000 years before he thought about it. And I think that's where our young minds, you know, we can only navigate so far, but hopefully what we share and leave and educate, this next generation can now take it to its destination, but don't lose sight of the navigating star.
Yes.
So I'm personally from the many comments and listening yesterday, and I love the intergenerational. I said these very young people and children. You know, children are like pixie dust. You sprinkle it all over, and no matter how bad things are, it elicits a smile anyway. So. And I think we're all part of getting this new wave to rise again. And believe me, we're looking at a healing tsunami.
Yeah, I'm with that, man. And, you know, how you going to get prepared for that? Right? It's like, that's the kind of tsunami you head to the beach for, the healing one. And it's interesting because I've been hearing some marketplace arguments for strengthening the old system. But even down in Georgia, where we're seeing the faithful come out and gather, even there, I'm glad to see independent shop owners, independent business owners really being smart in their approach to how they open. And they're being forced to innovate. They're being forced to do their business in a different way. And Jimmy, you know, you used to kick around town and be quite the community hand. What do you see around town nowadays?
Yes, I see that, you know, the look we all see, which is like somebody turned the clock back 30 or 40 years.
Hey-o.
And people are being careful. And we're going through a process to adjust to this coronavirus or the lockdown, and we're not getting straight, consistent, good information from our so-called leadership. So what you see is what has happened throughout the ages, is that people say, I don't like this, or I need this, or I want this, so I've got to do A, B, and C in order to have a life. And that's what people are doing. They're being careful. They're wearing their masks. They've got gloves. They don't let you into the store if you don't have them. These little methodologies are what are going to develop over the next couple months, because this is a thing that we need to get used to, I think, and be ready for. It's not going to go away. It's not going to go completely back to the old normal. It could actually, in a lot of ways, get worse. So I encourage everybody who has the ability to be ready to go somewhere where you can have food and water. If that's a friend with a farm, if it's your backyard with some, you know, catch the rainwater off your roof. Figure a system out to do that, because, you know, you can only depend on those you love and yourself and your community in order to survive anything like what's going to come down the pike.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of community capacity building, as you fellas know.
Yeah.
Right. And
aren't we all? Yeah.
Right. And when this moment is upon us, I want us to remember it is just that, a moment. right? And that moment will change and will shift, and other moments will occur as they always have, as they always do. So my grandfather, he used to say, preparedness, that's something that's best done in advance. But but it's not what we do as a society, as policymakers, as governance. We tend to react to whatever disaster just went past. So we develop new policies, new approaches for something that just happened, right? And it's more than likely not going to happen again. The next thing that happens is going to be completely different. At least that's what my years in business have led me to believe, that each incident is unique, right? It has its own sort of internal structure as well as impact to our larger systems. And that's the same as any leaf on any tree or any snowflake or any of those great kids that Doc was just talking about, that go running around. And so since we know the pattern, shouldn't we prepare forward? And so I really applaud what you're saying, Jimmy, about hey, everyone, wherever you are, you can do something. I know you've seen it before, but I'm gonna run us a little video here, and here's my magic hands. Ooh.
Oh.
Sorry. Those are the magic hands.
Somebody didn't get the cue there.
Yeah, no, he did. We're just laughing about it. I'm bringing the magic hands in all together. See, I'm a magician here, not even touching a button. And go. Ohana is community. And you can't fake community. So thanks to Pierre and Pam Midyar, the Midyar Foundation and the Hawaii Community Foundation, and thanks to Winona LaDuke and the fine folks that Honor the Earth, we put together enough grant money to create this media station, a community media station with community volunteers where we do outreach, networking, and keep the community connected and cohesive. Hey, for me, this is where it starts, where it always started, where they started me. Whether it's Earth Day or justice or just participation, this is where it begins, right here in the compost pile. You gotta take care of your waste. If we really look at what's going on, it's about our solid waste management. I once said to the UN, marine debris, isn't that just a sexy way of saying our trash in the ocean? Part of responding, both to Earth Day and the COVID-19 reality is, shouldn't we always have been growing our food at home? And that's what we do here. We keep our starts, we keep our plants constantly going, we keep food on the trees so that we can keep our medicines like the Tulsi blooming so that we can use it. And we're constantly planting crops like these beans. And we use different techniques. This is where I live, see? This is my house right here. Kind of Hawaiian style with all the cars out front, the plants. This is my neighbor, Wayne Konashida.
Hello.
See, Wayne lives over here next door. You see, Wayne's house. Wow, remarkably different from my house. You notice the difference? My house, Wayne's house. See, my house, we own, so we can plant any plant we want to. But Wayne's house, he's renting, and his landlord no like him plant any kind of plant.
Yes, they don't.
So, what can you do in that situation? You are not helpless. We can still do something.
Yes, we can.
Again, my house over here, and look this way, Wayne's house. See the difference? But Wayne and I working together. You see down there? We're taking advantage of the fence and we're planting on both sides. Wayne is planting beans,
Tomatoes.
Up tomatoes.
Huh?
I have
Cala-
pipinola, right?
Pipinoli, squash,
Right, so we can work together.
bananas.
So you see Wayne's yard, grass and a lawn. My yard, food forest and a forest, old Hawaiian style. But still we can work together. So
Yes.
how can we do this? We set Wayne up right here to catch water.
In our catchment system.
We're gonna catch in our catchment system and we're gonna funnel water using those bamboos right there to build a trough to run water towards a garden system. Let's go see the garden system. Oh, see, so we're planting
Kale.
inside these pots, kale growing, and using the bamboo. We never have lumber, no could go to the market, so we use the bamboo. We cut down the bamboo, started planting the lettuces, the radicchio, the bok choy, the ong choy. So even though you're only renting, you can still do something.
This is what we can do.
Yeah, we can do, and we all do what we can do, and then we all share. The whole point is, hey, if I quarantined myself for 21 days and he was quarantined for 21 days, look like we both not sick, we can start working together.
Yes.
So we find ourselves coming out here into the rural communities, and it's the rural communities that support the metropolitan areas during these disasters. So our campus is set up as a homestead, an R1, a residential 1 zoning in Hamakua at Ag 20 zoned area. And here we have outdoor kitchens, outdoor facilities, and even this micro food forest directly adjacent our learning area for teaching for our virtual interconnected community tree gardens education curricula. 25% of it includes the annuals, your herbs, your onions, your vegetables, and then the rest is tree foods. In this moment.
Oh my.
The camera even goes over a waterfall with the guy over a waterfall down into the water. So the bottom line is we've designed and built a community resilience center here. Doesn't look like much, but it's a kitchen facility, a forest facility, a learning facility that has a virtual interconnected community learning component. And that would be our 4-camera studio that enables us to send our lessons directly out from the campus. Yeah, so anyway, that's a little example of what we're doing here at the Ohana Foundation. And thank you, Jimmy and Doc, for the support. And we want to continue working with the National Disaster Preparedness Training Center. And thanks, Doc, for flying the colors this morning. We've been looking at not only how do we prepare for these disasters, but more importantly, since 2009 and that tragic disaster down in Tutuila in American Samoa, we started looking at how do we recover. And some of those lessons are the things that really have motivated the conversation around the table. And Pali, I was hoping you could mention some of those lessons we learned about food on the ground. It was quite a different experience. It wasn't about FEMA K rations. It was about the localized food source.
Um, yes, I think in microcosm it demonstrated an ancient wisdom. Um, in There's a term in Samoa called fa'afo'i ilealofa that it simply means to return with love. And people who visited Polynesian families in general, you will most likely be quite amazed at their generosity in giving. Even though you brought something, you end up taking more back to your home than what you brought. Well, that concept of cultural, social generosity also extends to generosity to Mother Earth.
You, you.
So when she gifts us with food, we we return with aloha, and by returning with aloha, essentially, now that I have scientific terms that go with this, we are restoring the energies and the material wealth that help generate the life of the plants and fruits that we eat, returning it back to her.
Mm.
And this regenerative philosophy had always been with us, but it's been replaced with other things. So now we are very extractive in our development. We extract from the earth and give nothing back. In fact, we leave the earth degenerated. But our ancient wisdoms have taught us to be restorative, to give back. And then Mother Earth is generative. It's regenerated. We're restoring the energies back into the life support systems that provides for us.
Hey,
we lost that someplace.
Hey, that's so on target, Polly, and I'm going to take advantage of this moment to advocate for the name of the Rising Voices Center and say it should be of regenerative sciences. Regenerative, not native or indigenous, because regenerative includes all of life on the planet, not just human life, not just the two-legged, but all of life. I am opposed to companies like Nestle's and Coca-Cola gaining corporate control over freshwater resources. There's less than 2% fresh water on the entire planet. And so people might think, well, 7 billion people, 2% of the water, we got to spend. People, all of life is dependent on the fresh water. All of life. That means people's share should be someplace around 0.0001%. I want you to think about that. What the humans consume in terms of fresh water on the planet should be 0.0001%. And that includes all the golf courses and hotels and restaurants that we're all of a sudden beginning to realize we might not actually need those things. Right? And me, I got the Mick Jagger school of philosophy. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. Woo, 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 woo. Right? So I guess the rock and roll of 40 years of rock and roll paid off anyway. Right? I guess those early experiences really did lead to the sort of environmental awareness. So we'd been down this road, right, Jimmy? We questioned the man, you know what I mean? And now I turn around and a man, hey, that's my classmate from 7th grade. So, I'm beginning to wonder exactly how far have we come, and will we in fact have a chance at recovering this in a different way? What say ye, gentlemen?
Wow. What will the humans decide to do when pressed against the wall? And that's what it's going to come down to, most likely. At least all indications are. I mean, we kind of live in this false bubble of protection here in the United States.
Hey, you're not coughing, are you? That's not the. Okay, just kidding. Just raising fear's ugly little head in response to mass media.
Hey, they've got a new sandwich out at the Golden Arches. It's called the McCovid. Anyway, so let's segue out of that. But no, there's a great line from the remake of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, where John Cleese points out to the visiting alien who's about to wipe out humanity to save the planet. He says, wait, you guys, you had to come to he's talking to the alien, he says, you had to come to a point where your species made a great change. And the alien confirms that. And he says, well, that's where we are. We're at the brink, and we have to actually get to the brink in order to change. So, that's, I think, a great description of what's happening right now on the earth, is that humans have pushed the thing to the brink. And now the more of us that actually get up to the edge and say, holy effing whatever, and look into the abyss and say, wait a minute, how do we dial this back in a way that's going to help us? I mean, that's our choice, either into the abyss or change. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing unfolds.
I think it's interesting that into the abyss is also change. So let's change in a positive way. Pali,
Right.
always looking for your guidance.
It could also be the valley of abundance. The term, I think when I had mentioned earlier, restorative entrepreneurship that basically encompasses innovation and creativity. It's looking at how can we reframe ancient wisdom in modern terminologies. For example, Fafo'i alofa. Fafo'i means to return. Alofa means love. I think the social scientist concept of that is restorative giving. Giving back in full measure what you are given, what you are gifted, or what you take. Giving back in full measure. And by giving back in full measure, it assures balance and harmony in most things. The term regenerative, I prefer Fafo'i alofa, basically describes the restoration, the renewal, the revitalization of the Earth's sources of energies and materials, of which has sustained human life since immemorial. And when we're looking at innovative entrepreneurship, I think we're seeing it happen. We're working with a wonderful gentleman named Michael Lerby. Essentially, we talked about the regenerative purpose of his technology. Basically, it's turning trash into viable byproducts.
Solid waste.
So really, and what is amazing is we both had to come to the understanding that no system can sustain itself over a long term. And yet they're constantly throwing out this word sustainability. The reason why, because sustainability is not designed to continuously regenerate.
It's status quo.
It's not regenerating, it's status quo. And so the model that we have been working with and talking with Kalani for over a decade, and now we've gotten wonderful, amazing people involved, Ramsey and Khalid and a bunch of others, is that we need a new development ecological model. Where waste streams from one is linked to the industrial input channels of another, thereby turning waste into a resource. So The goal is to produce goods and services in a way that there is no waste, so that the byproducts of one process becomes the inputs for another process.
Ew.
And that has been the foundation of indigenous survival since forever. Two excellent examples today. There's a fish pond here on the windward side called He'eia. It is still providing fish to feed, and that technology is over 800 years old. So this is, again, a regenerative process that involves the community. Very little capital, modern equipment. We utilize the resources that are there. It brings the community together, and everybody shares in a way that sustains the kind of harmony and balance that is essential for the peace we all seek in our souls. The other example, this is fish, is breadfruit. Breadfruit is probably one of the most resilient fruit trees in the world. And yet we have, in the past centuries, modern development has had many of these trees cut down. We need to restore these trees and get back to a level of food security between the ancient fish ponds and the ancient breadfruit that can guarantee food security that modern systems cannot. You have over 90% of the food is dependent on imports to the state of Hawaii. Good luck on that when the ships no longer come for whatever reason. But these are ancient wisdoms, but with restorative entrepreneurship. We've got young people who are leading this. I mean, we've got technologies that are developed for small communities and islands that are regenerative in nature. We now have a marine food source that is regenerative. And now we have a land natural tree fruit bearing source that is also regenerative. And they are the basis of the survival of our people for millenniums. Why are we discarding that for something on a shelf that we're not sure will be filled depending on whether the freight ships are moving or not, or whether the planes are flying or not? So we need to embrace our wisdoms and be humble enough to understand that you need to listen to your heart, as our elders would tell us, because it's our ancestors speak to us through it.
Thank you, Polly. Spot on point. And we know that the system is supported by policies such as, the Jones Act that support, in fact, those shelves in the supermarket, double billing so that Hawaii has the highest cost of living in the United States. So much so that the United States actually removes those figures from its national statistics so as not to, show everybody the difference between us and San Francisco. I believe the last time I checked, we're 64% above the next highest marketplace. 64. Not like 10% higher or 15% higher, 64% higher. So this is interesting. Our return to normal, given our natural capacity, as you suggested, with Koa Schultz and the great folks down there at Kako'iwi doing a great job in He'eia, reinstalling the food forest, reinstalling the taro, people down at the fish ponds. That program's been going on even longer, malamaing the lokoia, creating the capacity. I want to caution, He'eia Uli, that region right there with all that capacity, is famous because it's part of a double twin region. He'eia Akea is the outer piece where Mokapu, the sacred beach, where they say Kumuhonua, the first human, was created and received the breath of life from Akua, was at Heia Akea. One in the shadow, one in the light. The two brothers, Kanaloa and Kane. The hollies of Kane and Tangaroa are at the back of Heia and, the valleys on the windward side. So ancient stories, ancient historical past. My word of caution is the land district, the partnership district of Heia Akea is now Kaneohe Marine Air Corps Station. So I don't think there's too much environmental science going on there or even community capacity building except for the industry of war, which admittedly is a whole nother program. So thanks you guys for joining me this morning. Pali, Jimmy Love, I always count on you guys for at least the truth when we get started. I'm going to leave you with a song. Let's leave them with I Get Home to You. This is an old song talking about returning home to the ones you love in modern society. And join us for VRV8 on YouTube. VRV8, Indigenous Science and Modern Science at the intersection of regeneration and community capacity building. Thanks again here at Hindsite 2020. You guys enjoy the song. We're out.
Aloha.
5 o'clock alarm bell rings, same thing every day. Well, answer the phone, I'm not home, I'm already on my way. Out the door, down the street, got to keep me on my feet. I got coffee, I got donuts, in the office down the street. And the fat hat lady's faking a heart attack. And my manager yelling at me, say, can't give her money back. Bank called, the notice overdue. And that's just one more thing I gotta do till I get on to you. Till I get on to you. 12 o'clock, the lunch bell rings. Same thing every day. You better answer the phone in the proper tone. Yes, sir, whatever you say. Right on time, on the time. Got to keep me on my feet. I got contracts, I got lawyers in the office down the street. Jam is backing up more than I can stand. Things ain't working out the way I had them planned. Ain't on the meeting, just a drink or two. That's just one more thing I gotta do till I get on to you. Till I get on to you. I get on to you. I get on to you. 6 o'clock, it's the happy hour. Sipping on no whiskey sour. Bartender asking about a refill, and I'm wondering who's paying the bill. The ladies be hitting the call, sugar papers, one and all. My boss be dancing on the dance floor, so I'm heading out that door. And I'm making my move, I'm breaking out this bar.